Hi guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be my April TBR. Now, basically through the end of February through mid-March, I was fighting for my life with a reading slump. I won't lie, this kind of turned some of my reading goals in TBR upside down, but I finally feel like I'm coming out of the other side of this slump. So with that in mind, I do have a couple carryovers from the previous months, but just like a more intense TBR because I'm hopeful I'm really going to be reading a lot over the course of the month of April. But before we dive into the books themselves, first a word from this video's sponsor, which is Skillshare. I'm so excited to be partnering up with Skillshare once again because they're truly a platform I have personally used for years. But if you're not familiar, Skillshare is an on-demand video platform. It is also the largest online learning community for creatives. They have thousands of different creative classes and countless categories, ranging in both depth and breadth on these topics in illustration, graphic design, photography, music, marketing, productivity, and so much more. I've personally taken classes both in the interest of my hobbies and also professionally with learning how to utilize specific software. These classes are also designed by creatives for creatives, and they all have a very hands-on approach, which I personally love and matches my learning style. I've taken countless classes on Skillshare. More recently, I've been learning how to crochet. This past month, I've been trying to get my productivity back in line. Since the new year, I have been a little off my game. I have been disorganized in a way that I'm not typically, and my calendar system in particular is out of control. I use a combination of digital and physical calendaring. It personally usually works best for me. But lately, I have just been a bit of a mess, which is why I've been taking Chaos to Calm Google Calendar Workshop for creatives. And this class is designed to help you transform your Google Calendar to create a calming digital space with room to breathe. I personally love that this teacher goes through not only a very helpful template with a variety of options based on your personal career, but the aesthetics of this calendar really speaks to me. I am someone who's motivated by aesthetics when it comes to keeping my schedule in line, so I appreciate that this class has a nice aesthetic lens because it's really helped me stay clued in and motivated to get my life together. Not to mention there were so many cool tips and tricks that even though I've been using Google Calendar for years, I did not know. This has helped me get more organized, but also set me up for the future to maintain that organization, which I desperately need. If you're looking to kickstart a new hobby or tackle a new professional interest, Skillshare could be the perfect platform for you. And the first 500 people to click the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you again to Skillshare so much for sponsoring this video, but without further ado, let's go ahead and dive back into the TBR. Now, for the month of April, there are not only so many incredible new releases that have recently come out or are coming out this month, but there are some books that I am dying to get to on my shelf. The first book on my TBR came out last month, and I cannot wait to read and do a reading vlog covering this book, and that is Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. This is the third book to the Legendborn Cycle series, which is an incredible YA contemporary fantasy series. I have loved every single installment of this series so far. It's a wonderful combination of great characters, action, and a plot that truly I've not been able to put down. I also feel like Tracy Deonn is taking some classic fantasy tropes and absolutely turning them on their head. In this series, we're introduced to our main character Bree Matthews, and at the beginning of book 1, she has just moved on to the UNC campus because she is enrolled into like this prestigious high school program that happens there. However, though, her life is very quickly turned upside down after witnessing a magical attack on this campus, resulting in her realizing a couple of things. 1, magic is real. 2, there's also a secret society that exists on campus that deals with these magical entities that's modeled after like Arthurian legend. And 3, she's decided that she's going to try out for it. And book 1 sort of follows the trials of entering this society. We begin to not only learn more about the magical history of this place, this secretive group that again has ties to King Arthur himself, and again, just an incredible journey of family, magic, blood, history, and how all of this is connected through time. Again, I thoroughly enjoyed books 1 and 2. I've been on the edge of my seat waiting for this release to come out, so obviously I'm going to be picking this up very, 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 very soon. Another new release I truly cannot wait to get to is A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. This, of course, is the sequel to The Tainted Cup, which is one of my newer favorite series that are beginning to release, and Robert Jackson Bennett in general is one of my favorite fantasy writers. This is a series I describe as like Sherlock Holmes meets a Attack on Titan. It's set in a very strange fantasy world that is so unique. Basically, it's an empire that's surrounded by these massive walls. The maintenance of these walls is incredibly important because there are basically these massive monsters that appear out of nowhere and try to attack civilization. In this book, we're following our two main characters, Din and Anna. Din has had modifications that allows him to have a photographic memory, specifically so we can work alongside detectives to catalog various evidence and crime scenes and things like that. He works alongside our other main character, Anna, who is a very unusual detective. He's struggling to find inroads with this person. He doesn't understand her decisions or the various things that she makes him do. And at the beginning of book 1, they're assigned to a new case of a recently murdered engineer in a remote area of this empire. And he died by having an entire tree erupt out of his body. The conspiracy of this book is delicious. Like, the layers of the onion of the mystery of this was so good. But more than anything, the camaraderie and the character dynamics between Anna and Din are hilarious and just so endearing. It's the perfect balance of like great character work, humor, and mystery, and I adore this series and I cannot wait to get my hands on the sequel. The next two books are both carryovers from some previous TBRs. The first is The Problem with Peace by Joe Abercrombie. This is a book I have already started. I've read about 100 or so pages of this, and this is book 2 to the Age of Madness series. I am loving the second installment so far. I also adored the first book. I feel like every book that Joe Abercrombie puts out gets better and better and better. I just wasn't really in the right headspace to read this, and I know it's going to take over my life, and I also want to give it like my full heart and attention when I finally do pick it up, which is why I'm putting it on my April TBR. I hate to say it, but this is technically the 8th book that Joe Abercrombie has put out. You do actually need to read all of his previous releases before you can pick this series up, but lucky for you, that journey is fantastic, while also grim and disturbing in all of the best ways possible. Joe Abercrombie is known for writing grim, dark fantasy stories. He introduces us to a broad cast of characters that in theory should all be incredibly unlikable, and they are, but also you find them very endearing, especially as you continue to read the series. Given that they all kind of have gray morality, they're very unpredictable, creating a situation that you're not only on the edge of your seat for the plot and like the plot movements that Joe Abercrombie makes, but also how characters are going to act within those plot movements just makes for such an entertaining and unputdownable series. I have loved every book, as I mentioned, that I've read of Joe Abercrombie so far, and this second installment in this trilogy of his is proving to also be fantastic, so I can't wait to finally finish this. And then another carryover is also Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. Again, I was feeling a little bit slumpy, so picking up kind of an intense fantasy read where I really wanted to focus on all the details just wasn't quite in the cards for me over the last 4 weeks. That being said though, I finally feel like I've really improved my game and I am wanting to pick this book up hopefully this month. This is the first book to a very long, very beloved, very epic fantasy series. It's known for being rather dense, it's known for being very detailed oriented, and I'm excited to see where in the world this series is going to take me. Book 1 introduces us to a conflict and kind of an evil empress and the various people who are participating in this war that seems endless. I think the scale and nature of this book really expands in a lot of different directions, but as a starting point, that does intrigue me. The next book that's on my TBR is System Collapse by Martha Wells. This is the next book within the Murderbot Diaries that I am on, and I have been saving this book because I don't really want to be caught up with the Murderbot Diaries because I have loved the journey of this series immensely. But alas, it's time for me to finally do that. And this I want to say is like book 7? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, this is book 7 of a very episodic short story collection following our main character Murderbot, who is a robot that basically has hacked its own mainframe at the beginning of book 1, allowing it to make its own decisions outside of the company that created it. Every book in this series is incredibly endearing because Murderbot as a main character is so likable. It's depressed, it's wanting to understand who it is, where it came from, kind of figure out what it wants to do with the rest of its life. It also just loves to watch its shows, hang out, and we watch it begrudgingly, make friends. But this series also has so much action, and every book kind of has its own vibe to it. It's very much like Murderbot Adventure of the Week. Like, there's always new environments that Murderbot finds itself in, and it is always chaotic. It's a great balance of humor, great characters, and action. I love this series immensely. Kind of in a space mood recently, I decided to revisit a book I've technically already started and restart it from the beginning, and that is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is described as like a beautiful found family sci-fi story about a crew of misfits on a spaceship together as they travel through wormholes in space, and the stories of their lives, watching them become closer together as they take on a very dangerous mission, as they work to basically map out various like wormhole exit and entry points. I've heard literally nothing but fantastic things about this, and I've actually read 100 pages of this book about a year ago and really loved it. It's definitely like a cozy sci-fi story. Like there's going to be sci-fi adventure, but it's much more about the relationships that exist between all of these characters living on this spaceship. And honestly, like found family spaceship vibes is like one of my favorite settings. Small confines, space travel, what more could you want? The next book on my TBR was a recent pickup, and that is The River Has Roots. This is a short story that I feel like is going to be rather gripping and emotional. This is also by the same author who wrote This Is How You Lose the Time War, which was one of my favorite reads of last year. This is actually a fae-centered story, which in general is always one of my favorite things, and specifically follows two sisters who have been protecting this grove of trees for as long as they can remember. But I think at the beginning of the story, everything that they know begins to crumble down. And the thing that really sold me about this is described as a half delicious murder ballad, half beguiling love story. I don't know how those two things can coexist, but I have faith this author can really work that out, because This Is How You Lose the Time War is also a combination of like things that don't feel like they should fit together but work so well. The next book on my TBR is a sequel I have for some reason put off for way too long, and that is The Daughter's War by Christopher Bowman. Christopher Bowman is one of my favorite writers. He combines elements of like horror, comedy, and fantasy in the most fantastic ways. I am both terrified, disgusted, and laughing out loud in so many of his scenes. And it's truly such a beguiling combination of feelings that I feel like Christopher Bowman pulls off so well. This is a prequel to a book I loved and read a few years ago, which was called The Black Tongue Thief. The Black Tongue Thief is a quest-centered story following two characters. One, a down-on-his-luck thief, who at the beginning of the book basically tries to rob the wrong person. And that person is Galva, who is a very powerful knight and also a veteran of the Goblin War. Due to a variety of circumstances, they begin to travel with one another. This story is a prequel centering Galva and her experience participating in the Goblin War. And if you've read The Black Tongue Thief, it's constantly referenced as like a horrifying, traumatic situation. So I'm very curious to see like how Christopher Bowman is going to build up that world. Galva is such a fantastic character, so I'm really thrilled to have a prequel novel centering her and her story to give more background. So I'm really hoping to read this month. I also feel like I'm going to love this. The next book on my TBR is my IRL book club pick that I have to get to this month because, in fact, surprise, we are meeting in the month of April, and that is Beautyland. This is our club's first sci-fi selection, and to say I was very excited about that was an understatement. And this seems to be a beautiful combination of science fiction ideas with literary fiction and a lot of personal identity exploration. But this is a story about an alien who, when they were a baby, were rehomed on Earth without their knowledge. So they have basically been growing up on Earth surrounded by humans, always feeling different, always feeling other than everyone around them, but not really understanding why. Then one day our main character decides to see if there's anyone else feeling just like her on Earth. Again, I feel like this book is going to really center identity and the feeling of belonging, friendship, love, family, connection, a lot of themes and tropes I personally really enjoy. I also really love the sort of infusion of literary fiction and sci-fi in this book, and I'm really excited to see how those sci-fi elements play out alongside what I feel like is going to be a beautiful narrative. The next book on my list is a sequel I'm dying to get to, and that is Where the Library Hides. I read the first book to this series, which is What the River Knows, a few months ago, and honestly, it was a delightful YA fantasy book. It had all of my favorite things about YA fantasy, a spunky main character, a coming-of-age element that you truly could root for, a very fun will they won't they romance, and a cool setting, particularly in ancient Egypt surrounding archaeology and the passion of preserving but also uncovering lost history. Our main character is named Inez, and at the beginning of book one, she is living as a beautiful young socialite in Argentina until she receives the heartbreaking news that her parents have unexpectedly passed away, resulting in her trying to track down on what happened to them. Her parents were passionate about archaeology in Egypt, and that is where they actually went missing. So she decides to travel to her uncle who resides there to get answers for herself. Along the way, she gets wrapped up in all different types of conspiracy, meets a handsome man, and has a complicated relationship with her uncle. I loved the twists and turns of book one. I read it so fast. It was both cute and fast-paced, and the end was super explosive, and I'm really looking forward to see like how the whole thing is going to wrap up within this book, but it's just like a blast. I had a great time reading it. And then the last book on my TBR is Rivers of London. I'm actually going to London in April with my mom, so I thought it'd be fun to pick a topically relevant book for my TBR to perhaps read while I am there. This is like a detective-esque story set in London that also centers magic, and in particular we follow our main character who was just an ordinary detective working his days until one day he witnessed something magical, and now he finds himself as a wizard's apprentice, and he now has to solve various magical crimes. I love this kind of setup. I love episodic mystery of the week books if they have really likable characters. I really also love detective, mystery-oriented stories too. I'm hoping this is just like entertaining, a quick and easy read while also like engrossing me, if you know what I mean. Alrighty guys, that is my April TBR. Thank you again to this video's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Quick reminder, the first 500 people click the link in my description are able to get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye.